Hi guys, it's Dylan from Bijou Diamond Jewellery in London with another watch video, and today we're looking at the releases from 2020. 2020 has been a bit of a strange year so far, obviously. I mean, the watch industry is minor in terms of what's changed across the world, but we've completely reformatted the way we display new releases, and you know, the whole industry's changed massively. That was really helped along by the fact that a lot of brands decided they wanted to leave Basel World, which usually we saw releases around March, and that obviously got cancelled, Basel World anyway, but most of the brands weren't, or the big brands weren't displaying there anymore. And SIHH no longer had Audemars Piguet and Richard Mille, so a lot of brands have started to go and release their watches on their own and do their own release events in their own time. This is kind of a new adjustment for everyone. We're going to look at a couple different brands. The main brand we're going to look at is Rolex, of course, because most people just want to know what Rolex has released. But we are also going to look at Audemars Piguet, Patek Philippe. So we're going to start with Rolex and start with the Oyster Perpetual. The Oyster Perpetual has two brand new models, the 41mm and also the 28mm. So now that full range of Oyster Perpetual watches stands from 28mm, 31mm, 34mm, 36mm, and now 41mm. We used to have a 39mm watch, which is now replaced by the 41, which I think is a real shame because the 39mm Oyster Perpetual was actually a really popular watch for us. It was definitely the most popular entry-level Rolex, and it was a perfect size. It suited actually such a huge range of wrist sizes. You know, women wore that watch, and also men with large wrists wore that watch. I think it was a fantastic size at 39mm and really is kind of like the sweet spot. So I think it's a bit of a shame they've got rid of it. I would have thought they would have perhaps continued it on and just added the 41mm in, but they've decided to phase it out, which maybe is a shame, but let's see how it comes across and see how people receive the 41mm. I'm sure it'll be a very popular watch anyway, nonetheless. Again, it's aimed at the entry-level audience, and it's nice to be able to offer those entry-level audiences a 41mm watch. So we've got a brand new movement in all of these models, including the 28mm, the 31mm, 34mm. In the smaller watches, so the 28, 31, and 34, we've got a caliber 2232, which features a 55-hour power reserve, brand new movement in-house, super cool. And the caliber 3230 in the 36mm and 41mm Oyster Perpetual, and that is straight out from the no date Submariner, the brand new no date Submariner. So they're sharing the same movement as the Submariner there. Nice little update. The actual 36 and 41 feature a 70-hour power reserve, which is really cool. A nice big update in terms of power reserve from the last models, or last movements. The biggest kind of most talked about thing with the Oyster Perpetuals though is their new dials, specifically the 36mm is where most people are looking at those dials, because that's the biggest range of dials you can get for the Oyster Perpetual. That's kind of like the midpoint, the sweet spot for the Oyster Perpetual. We've got a new pink, a coral red, a yellow, a green, and a turquoise. All of them are super bright and vibrant, which is really unusual for Rolex. Usually when Rolex brings out these vibrant dials, they're kind of more limited, or just a Datejust dial that's not often in production, perhaps a special precious stone rather than an actual lacquer dial like they're doing here. I think it's really cool actually that they're doing these more brighter dials. I think it's kind of aimed maybe at the more younger entry-level audience. Most of the time entry-level people or entry-level clients are younger, and therefore maybe these dials will be kind of, will maybe appeal to these guys or those clients a bit more than kind of the standard plain dials. However, they still are doing the standard kind of more normal dials, the classic dials, the black, the silver, and the navy blue, but these kind of supplement the range and bring it a little bit more of a playful life, which I actually really like. I think it's a cool, unique thing to see from Rolex. Not often we see them being playful like this. Usually they're very classic. I really like the Oyster Perpetual updates. I think it's possibly one of my favorite releases this year, not just from Rolex, but from all brands. But yeah, that's the Oyster Perpetual. Really cool new watches, and I'm sure they'll do really well. We've actually seen a real big interest in the Oyster Perpetual in the last year or so, so I'm sure this really will add to that hype around the Oyster Perpetual. Moving now on to the Datejust, we saw just a minor update to the Datejust collection, and that was the 31mm featuring a new relesser, which is white, gold and steel combination. A couple new models there, a couple new dials. There's also a diamond bezel variation as well. Nothing major to talk about, but just have to mention it. Next, moving on to the Sky Dweller, we've got a brand new, or there's no necessarily new model, but we've got new options for the Sky Dweller, and that is the new Oyster Flex strap that we saw originally on the Daytona back in 2017, I believe. The Sky Dweller now features the Oyster Flex strap, which is really, really cool. I think a lot of people will absolutely love that. Personally, I don't think it was a good move for Rolex because they've actually now phased out all the leather straps for these watches, and really the Sky Dweller is aimed at a business traveler, someone who travels for business, who wears a suit or a smart dress or whatever, someone who's trying to look smart, and the watch itself is a very dressy looking watch. So to put an Oyster Flex strap, a rubber strap on this, and actually also phase out all the leather strap options seems like a bit of a strange move from Rolex. I wish they actually kept the leather straps on and maybe added 2 Oyster Flex options. I know the Oyster Flex Sky Dweller will do really well because the precious metal and Oyster Flex combo is actually really cool, and we find it very popular. But I just wish they maintained or continued on with those leather straps. Moving now on to the Submariner, which is kind of the most talked about release of 2020 in terms of watches. There's been kind of rumors around the Hulk obviously being discontinued, but I don't think many people expected the whole line of Submariners to be discontinued. So yeah, pretty interesting to see that Rolex has now released a whole new brand new line for the Submariner, and that is in a new 41mm case size. I don't think this was a good move from Rolex, but hey, you know, I'm sure these will be really popular watches. I'm sure we'll get many requests for them. I think they really should have continued on selling some 40mm options, or just keep the line as a 40mm option and then add in the 41 as an additional option that you could maybe choose. So maybe there's only 2 models available in the 41mm case size. I just think it's such a bold move, seeing that during the majority of the Submariner's life it's been in a 40mm case size. To then discontinue all of them and then up the scale or up the size of these, it seems like quite a strange move. Let's see how they're received. Like I said, I'm sure they'll do very well, but our clients so far have not been particularly pleased with this release, and actually has made them actually look at the older models now, the 40mm models, and a lot of clients now from us literally within this last day have been requesting to buy the old example. So yeah, let's see how it goes. The no date features a new 3230 reference caliber movement, which is what we discussed on the Oyster Perpetual, which features a 70-hour power reserve, brand new movement in-house of course. The 2 new date versions are obviously also just the standard black, but we've got a new Kermit variation with the green bezel and black dial, which is pretty nice. I actually really like that watch. Just wish it was in 40mm. The date variations of the Submariner feature the new 3235 caliber, which again also in-house and featuring a 70-hour power reserve. The white gold Submariner now features a blue bezel and black dial, which is pretty interesting. I think this really will boost the sales or the interest in the Smurf, because that's just going to make it much more unique now, the Smurf, and a bit more special. I kind of predict those prices to go pretty high. They are already a relatively rare watch, the Smurf, to now have them discontinued and replaced by a watch that looks pretty different, and in my opinion, you know, nowhere near as good looking as the Smurf. I think the Smurf will definitely go up massively. Next, looking at the gold or the bimetal versions, but the gold and also bimetal versions, we've got the same dials, so the black and also the blue version for both the bimetal and the gold variants. Overall, I'm not particularly impressed with the Submariner release. I wish they just left the 40mm as it was and maybe just added these new bezels, or maybe added some dials, because they've been pretty lazy with the dials. They've just maintained black dials, and then obviously only the blue ones for the yellow gold. If they perhaps added a special dial in there, that would have been a bit more interesting. I think maybe one option that could have been cool would be if they perhaps left the no date Submariner as a 40mm Submariner, just added the new movement and that was it, and left it as it was, because I think that Submariner really should be true to the original Submariner, or as close to the original Submariner as possible. To then revamp that and make that 41mm, you know, makes it less of an interesting piece and more, yeah, less of a unique piece in the collection. But anyway, like I said, let's see how they're received. I'm sure they will do well. At the moment, the clients that have come to us to discuss new releases and also to make orders with us, no one is ordering the new 41mm Submariners. Everyone is looking at the old variants. And in fact, literally within one night, the prices of the old Submariners have gone up massively in value. Now, the Hulk is going at almost £20,000. So that's a huge jump in price. I'm sure that will continue up and continue going on. It'd be interesting to see how these wear in real life and see them in real life. The difference of 1mm is not major, but it's definitely going to be noticeable. I have seen kind of comparison pictures with the old and the new, and the old one, sorry, the new one just looks a bit more pancakey, a bit more flat in comparison to the 40mm, which just has a bit more depth, it feels like. But yeah, let's see. I'm sure we'll see them relatively soon. That concludes the updates from Rolex, or the new releases from Rolex. Let's take a look at Patek and AP. AP and Patek have released their watches a couple months ago. They did it very subtly, very quietly. I'm not sure if maybe they're going to release any more watches this year, or if they're just going to save it for next year. But obviously Audemars Piguet and Patek Philippe are at the kind of tippy top of the market and very expensive compared to Rolex and other brands. So perhaps they're thinking that this maybe isn't the time for them to be releasing watches, and they may not get enough interest in their new pieces. Nothing major really was released from either of these brands. A couple really cool new offshores from Audemars Piguet, a couple new Royal Oak options, and code 1159 as well. Nothing major again, there's just minor updates, no brand new models, etc, etc. Patek Philippe has released a couple cool models. They've only released grand complication models, only 3 models in fact. One being a amazing minute repeater tourbillon, just literally a display of what Patek Philippe can do in terms of watchmaking and their incredible craftsmanship. You know, it's not really going to be a big seller, but nor is it in big production numbers. It's going to be a very low production number watch. Next, moving on to their 5370P, which is the split second chronograph. Really beautiful watch, this one in platinum, obviously with a blue dial or navy dial and navy strap, which is absolutely stunning. I love this watch, love the shape and the classic look to this piece. But my favorite release this year is the new 5270J, which is the yellow gold kind of white dial, very classic looking perpetual calendar chronograph from Patek Philippe. This kind of is the essence of Patek. I'd say this watch, really looking at this watch, really to me is pure DNA of Patek. The fact it's a perpetual calendar and the chronograph, that look to the watch, the yellow gold with the white dial, is just pure classic Patek Philippe. You look back in history and in the past of Patek, and it's pretty standard to see a white dial or a lighter dial with the yellow gold case and the brown leather strap. So yeah, I'm sure this will do really fantastic. This is just a timeless classic, and I hope they keep it in the collection for many years. That concludes the kind of releases from this year. Obviously, I haven't covered all brands, so please put in the comment section below if you think that everyone should know about a specific release from a specific brand. I'm sure next year will be a really important release year for all the companies, because they'll be able to show everything they've got and with everyone's attention properly. Let us know what you think of this lineup. What do you think of the new Submariner 41mm? Are you a fan or are you not? And let us know in the comments what you think of the other watches mentioned. As always, if you're interested in any of the watches mentioned during this video, then please don't hesitate to contact us. Our details are at the end of the video and also in the description. It'd be a pleasure to call any of them into stock for you.